Mindustry PvP today. This is the first reasonably good game that I've recorded since making some more balance changes. Air unit crash damage is now 0, thanks to a rule that got added in the latest release. I have the ability to turn it off for the server, and that gets rid of the not great gameplay of every air unit is also a crawler. You don't actually use any of the weapons on the air units for attacking. You just move them over the core and then they die there and then you win. Got rid of that. Great. So there's a number of players around in this game that are decently good. They'll put up some competition. A range of fights from early aggression to stretching out all the way to the end. I got a nice amount of water in my opening hex, so I can use that to go a little faster. I think I've even got space to put my first big silicon array in the opening hex, so that's generally a nice heavy bonus. One little oil, that'll be good for getting simple early platinum. That's nice too. And we've run out of copper within less than 2 minutes. Oh well, that's to be expected. Alright, so someone in my south, and the rest of the players are all on the bottom of the map that you couldn't see without panning down to it, but I didn't take a long time for a look. I just wanted to see, which of the neighboring hexes do I want to send my first daggers to. Take care of the glass, and then that is the end of the initial setup. With that done, I want to find somewhere to put another steam generator. And after doing that, that's the power for the first larger silicon. And as always happens around this point in the game, silicon's drained out by both Mono Factory's core unloading, along with the Dagger Factory. So I do have a phase where I temporarily turn those off by changing the unloaders to lead. And that is presumably enough to get this steam generator finished and the first air blast, which goes on coal, and will worm its way around to going into the silicon. And I should remember, this is about to be a mistake, potentially, if I don't remember to put the water router on to actually get the water into the air blast. And it looks like I've forgotten it. Oh well. So that'll dampen silicon production. Although I'm usually moving on to the second thing I build is another silicon array. Well, along with the power that goes with it. And hopefully I won't forget to turn the monos back on once these are done. Or that will doom me to having bad copper and lead income later on in the game. And there's another error. One of those mechanical drills is a lead drill. So that is going to clog 2 of these silicon factories once it gets into the converted sorters. Making mistakes. So once I've got 14 silicon factories going, then it's the early combat daggers, which people just don't seem to be used to dealing with. I guess it might be sort of the impulse from the old ways of it used to be real easy to put down like 2 lancers and some arcs, and that'll stop the daggers. Although they're still great for taking empty space, and with RTS control, they're also good at sniping around the fringes at things or drawing attention to themselves. It distracts from, you know, what that person would rather be doing. Oh, here's a problem. I'm noticing the problem. What's wrong here? That's wrong. All right, that'll make more silicon. That'll be good. Once I get the more power, then I start to doing air blast economy stuff. You know, more graphite, more titanium, thorium, probably another glass. More of several things. We want them. Better graphite production, then it's safer to do platinum. Let's get 1 little platinum in. The point of this being overdrives. It doesn't nearly make anything fast enough to do, say, turrets with platinum in the recipe. I see that the player below me is a flare builder. So I'm gonna add some of the light air defenses and make sure that I've got the glass ammo to power it. Eventually everything gets shields too, because somebody might build horizons. And for horizons, the sustained attack sucks because they do that sort of swooping overhead and only firing once in a while. But for Alpha Strike, if you get enough horizons concentrated, then they'll just get the core in the first pass and win. So that's the thing that you need the shields to prevent getting derped on. That's not running. Okay, so you didn't build a bridge there over the water. So many tiny economy errors. So there are arcs on the spawn core, which I don't want to go near. With this amount of firepower, I can hit in this direction. So in addition to removing crash damage, I've also reduced building damage. So unit damage is at 50% a multiplier for everything, and building damage is a 50% multiplier for everything. So all combat should take longer, so people have more time to respond to things, to do micromanagement inside of it, or to choose to retreat instead of just, you know, everything dies in a few seconds and you couldn't actually interact with it or have gameplay about it. And one of the things that does is it takes a lot more than just 1 lancer to stop some daggers. It's concentrating them on the left, but there's no power plant over there. I made a mess of the power plant. I'm gonna make a mess of this power plant. I'd like to finish my own power plant, but I've neglected to build as much titanium as I need. Another slowdown. Sometimes I've got enough time and spare graphite that much earlier than that I do another string of pneumatic drills. And that helps a lot against preventing this kind of thing. So 2 kinds of blue at the very bottom, fighting each other, keeping each other busy. Hopefully one won't absorb the other and I'll end up fighting 2 people. He's adding unloaders going into hails, which needs larger numbers of daggers to actually go against it. But he's also pretty much ruined economy, and as long as I keep doing like little bits of stuff to him, then that player is out of the game. I've got Platinum Bank. I can put the overdrive into that power plant and start dividing up daggers to expansion purposes. Oh, they all died down there. Give me that overdrive. Good. All right, what are we doing next? Polys. All right, that's got a little flare defense on it. That's pretty good. You can start building into this hex. The whole V7 meta is working out to, you want more density and not as much spreading out as I used to do, because that gives you a chance to concentrate defenses versus, you know, if you're very spread out, then you have to put a lot more little forts and outposts and turret clusters to sort of form a border or a constant amount of pressure that stops flares from sneaking back, and they'll try to anyway. Usually a shield is enough to prevent those flares from killing something before attrition damage and, you know, emergency call up of units or emergency swarmer can respond. So we're gonna have some self-sufficient flares and horizon factories, and I'm going to do the phase boost on those. These are set on coal and sand, and they include their own power, so you don't have to worry about power situation. You can add them at any point that you're not brown out. They are a little low in efficiency, but it makes up for it in using less attention when you decide to build them. Okay, add the first big power plant, and as soon as that's up, then it makes sense to put down a phase so that that can start boosting the power plant, and then I'm going to get a bunch of power. And then I should do plastum. Oh, I've been neglecting down here. Really need to do something about this location permanently. I especially don't want to leave so there's black hexes below this row and then enemies on the other side. And I need to make sure that I've got established terrain and turrets and defenses or whatever on the black border. that takes away the option of them building a foothold and then progressing further out there. And I learned from a helpful YouTube comment that there are selection things that you can do in the command interface down in the lower right corner. And I'm going to end up using that a lot this game for things like give me all the army except for the polys, give me just the flares, give me just the flares and the zeniths. There's going to be a lot of stuff like that. It's a lot more accessible than trying to manage unit factory rally points because there's just so many factories all spread around. Alright. Take care of all this stuff that's on the far side. The power goes down and that'll hurt the Lancer shots. It's still not effective. Well, it's less effective heading the air in, because even just, 2 or 3 scatters are pretty damaging, even with 50% damage. But this will take out enough here. Get that one too. Alright, with the power up, then I'm adding, So I started working on the larger silicon factory before doing the actual platinum production. It's still on the 1 oil pump, 1 platinum compressor factory, which isn't enough for actual construction purposes. It just paid for some overdrives. It would be good to take this out, but now there's going to be a bunch of hails and a bunch of other stuff. It was generally just a waste. But there's no potential for economy coming up from that. So I can just ignore it. As long as I keep glancing back every now and then to make sure it doesn't turn it into something different. There's no economy there. There won't be any units coming out of it. Running myself low on thorium. Right, you need to fix the loader on the surge. Go back and do that. Oh yeah. Take out the polys and give me everything else. Fix the loader. There you go. And that one little surge factory will be enough to maybe make a dome. Or if I decide I need some emergency effective swarmer somewhere, then that'll be ammo for it. One tiny little brainless surge factory will make quite a bit of damage output when loaded up as ammo. And then later on you can make the, one of the 4 or 5 drop unloader schematics, and then you'd never have to worry about surge again forever, because nothing actually consumes it at a reasonable rate as ammo relative to the power that it provides. Still a balance problem, but less severe balance problem than some of the things that we've already managed to get fixed. There are blues starting to move in my direction that I should concern about. I didn't build enough extra thorium soon enough to actually build T3 factories. Yeah, my economy play has just been sloppy in general for a while. Out of practice. Cut that down. Can't go close to those scatters. This one I can take pretty easy. And then we want some in-place unit defense, and I'll start putting some fortifications there to be safe from that direction. Then I need to be worried about stuff coming from orange from the east. There's a fair amount of distance to there now, but that's not going to last, so I need to get this sealed up so I can start to worry about other directions. There's a couple 1-hex wonders that I need to clean out. So one of the things that I'm starting to try out is bringing back forts. We had forts all over the place in V6, and they worked because unit control couldn't easily go around them. You had some easy to figure out expectations about where things would go, so a line of forts would be potentially a safe construction. Now, without crash damage, the focus of the fort is preventing stuff from being able to actually hit your core and covering with menders and getting at least enough damage output nearby that if something stops and tries to wear away at it, then it's going to take a lot of damage. So this is the first try at that. 5 menders, 6 swarmers, some water, and thorium walls around the core. For economic purposes, it sucks. There's no way to insert or draw from that, so let's that's a loss from the old modular fort things that I used to use in V6. But that might not be something that can happen anymore reasonably well, because if you have open space immediately behind your core, expecting to put unloaders there or something, the RTS controls, they can just move their units to directly behind your fort and have free hits on the core. And it doesn't take many zeniths getting missile hits directly on a core shard to take it out. So you need to have walls all the way around it. The larger the air unit being commanded, the more spread out you can get. So you don't need a open space to move to as close to a shard to get units over it and actually hitting it. Yeah, seeing the orange flares fly around, it's time to add light defense everywhere. These work a little bit better if I bother to give them power, but make sure stuff doesn't have completely free reign to fly around up here. It's also strange that orange didn't go after me with those flares. Could have potentially done some damage, but did not. I'm not actually running low on anything. It's just, build speed pace that's All right. Bomber and flare safety improved. Let's take care of graphite permanently. This is probably the ugliest schematic I have, and it's also real old, but you know, you don't think about it, and if you got a surplus of power, then you know, just give me 5 multi-presses worth of graphite, do it quickly. And it also works for filling up space that would otherwise not be useful. There will at least be sand around. So like things around the edges where you don't have space to hang off any more core and loader schematics, or you know, maybe there's a bunch of scrap in the way or whatever. Like it allows you to fit more power, more combat effectiveness density, economy density into the same amount of space. Although it's not quite going to work fast enough. Oh, you know, maybe there's a dagger in the way and it canceled one of the parts on it, because I see there's a water pump on it that's not working. So I'm going to run myself out of graphite building this power plant. Oh well. I do want to head in this direction, and there are some good choke points to put down additional forts. So any attacks against me that will want to stay within life support radius of their own cores will have to do it to a fort. And if they try to bypass a core, then they're going to have to hit one of these little 2-swarmer things. Take their attrition when they take it, and then survive the responding air units that I call up to try and retake it. Totally possible, especially if, you know, they split into multiple waves and leave some reserves behind or something like that. But it takes a little bit more coordination there. Oh, that's vulnerable. Very vulnerable. With all those T3 factories. Using mass drivers. I never use those. I don't know why not. Bit of a distraction attack there. It would be nice to take that out, but I want them to not pay attention to that core, because that's something I'd like to take, especially since it makes an extra layer of depth. This is also a gap to plug. Need more thorium than I usually do. Now that I've got forts that have a lot of thorium walls in them, I need more thorium production than usual to keep up with that. One of the things that's surprising about this game is I am making do with much less unit production than is usually successful. Like, this is just one Zenith factory, one Flare factory, one Horizon factory, and that's an Antumbra factory. And those are gonna do the trick as long as I'm careful with them. Running low on silicon, putting up some of these sort of mid-economy versions of things. They take less silicon to build them. They're also power efficient. Like the silicon crucibles are actually less power efficient than silicon smelters per amount of silicon you get. The thing that you gain from them is they use less sand and they use less coal. But if you don't have a shortage of either of those things, there's not really much of a benefit to going for crucibles, other than like amount of building time per factory or density or something like that. These are real easy to just slap down, do one output belt and the power belt, and you've got, you know, 4 smelters and so there are alternative schematics that people will have that is an air blast of coal, air blast of sand, and a laser of sand. And that'll do 6 smelters. And if you just have 1 air blast of sand, then you can run 4 smelters, but you end up with a surplus of coal. And so, you know, my answer to that was, why not just put that in graphite presses and then get more graphite? It doesn't use any power, and you get something for, you know, not any additional needed drill footprint. And like single schematics that make more than one kind of thing. You can do 1 round of attention in choosing a schematic, choosing its location and building it, and get multiple things, instead of needing to do like, this is silicon, do the 3 things, get that factory. This is graphite, do the 3 things, get that factory. Like it takes more attention to build a individual specialized factory for each resource. Well, that's easy pickings now. Oh, there's an orange on the loose. Where's he going? Yeah, that's gonna not work out well because the units are right there to respond to it. Though it did pull a bunch of my stuff out of position. Go in there, do that. Stop and take care of those on the way. Oh, the slow Antumbra. Oh. And he saw me coming, and he did die. So now it's land rush time. I got a lot of fallen cores up around here. That are available, that is good space to pick up. Sneaky blue, but he's not, luckily he's not building into it, so that's easy to take back. All those poor flares, they can't do anything against even 50% swarmers. Here they go again. Chase them down, wait for the life support ticks to thin them out. Pull my assist drones to block this. That's fun. Assist drones are very close to being, you know, manually directly controlled based on where you fly. You could probably do that with megas and quads too. That might be a fun meme thing. Another difference with the forts that I'm using, there's phase going into those to sort of boost the overdrive power. So I need to build more phase factories. And normally I get away with just 1 phase factory, and that works for feeding power plants and automatic inputs of overdrives, and usually it also gets enough for the T4 factories. But if I'm going to be feeding that stuff into forts also, I'm going to need more. And these are just sort of extensible pieces with swarmers to try and make it less easy to fly random flares up in here. Platinum running low. Give me a fort here. Now would be a good time to hit that one hex wonder right there. Probably the daggers could do it. Didn't finish that fort. Yeah, I'm not doing nearly as much land rush as I should be doing. Like the entire upper right part of the map, I should be claiming that and sealing it off. But if anything moves up through this point while I'm doing that, then I'll be in trouble too. So it's all useful. Random oil, yeah. More platinum. T4 production is hungry for platinum and titanium. That'll be able to go a bit further. There's a juicy unit production hex there that is a good target. Polys are not coming with me. No, they're coming with me in a different way. I don't want them going to move instead of stopping player assist. Yeah, another thing about these fort layouts, I've intentionally moved the shield to the back because the shield is there specifically for stopping bombers. I don't want the shield to take hits. I don't want the shield to go down. When something comes up and is shooting at the fort, I want it to hit walls, not the shield. Not gonna get that. So that was expensive and a failure. Sacrifice half my polys to take another hex here. And then do the timing wrong. Derp. Rebuild, hooray. Oh, there's some more vulnerable stuff over there, but I don't have, the army left to get in there. I want to get a fort in this hex. But that's going to be a lot of back and forth, and I've got to wear down the zeniths to actually take it. So giving up, and I'll move the fort one back. This is the point where having much more unit production would be coming in handy. Can't really press this attack. I can save up for a while and make a good one, but then my forces are depleted. Yeah, and the same deal there. So, backing up again. You could probably also be putting in like edge parallax or something. You know, if he builds up lots of polys, lots of megas, lots of air stuff, setting up parallax traps is pretty useful for thinning out force, especially when like polys or megas are healing and rebuilding and going back and forth and crossing somewhere that's close to your territory. Then you can, you know, scrape off a lot of those with the parallax and pull them into range to kill them. You should be building nuclear plants, not the core and load differential gens, but that's the default. It's a little bit less brain power than looking for a spot where the 3x3 titanium matches up with a 2x2 of sand. Dome this. Give me that extra titanium. So my attempt to wrap around the edge here is not failing completely, but it's not going great either. Maybe I'll be able to hold this, maybe not. I don't think I'm going to get enough reinforcements in time. If I build from the other side, then the defensive walls would be going up first, and that would be better. But alright, so I am getting away with that one. But around the right side, instead of having a nice horizontal barrier, it's sort of leaning diagonally northeast, which isn't what I would like to have happen. And there's some fallen stuff up there that I should probably go make sure is dead. And this is dipping into my phase reserves. So I need to also make sure I'm adding more phase factories somewhere. And for my schematic library, that's looking for 4x4 thoriums with sand nearby. Oh, that stuff all looks vulnerable down there. Yeah, so that move was a preparation for attacking in that direction. So if wrapping around to the right isn't going, and wrap around to the left, things look to be in some severe disarray in that corner. Yeah, look at that mess. So we send in the Antumbras first to eat fire, and then we bring in the other stuff. Still pretty expensive because there's very wide coverage of the swarmers down here, but they got it. Use the polys as a meat shield to stop those flares. And we've established this point, and yeah, and Corvus just dipped out. So I'm not sure why that happened. He seemed to be in a good position. Well, not a good position, but a stable position. I hadn't actually broken through yet, unless this was going to immediately wrap around. But that would take a while, because my forces don't replenish. So his claim is that the other blue player in the corner down here hit all of his monos. And so in that case, you're gonna run out of copper and lead eventually. And that's, you know, hard to build into anything or build any units that require lead. Yeah, one of the things that I have considered, it still feels too easy to get surge ammo into turrets anywhere you want it. There'll be a core nearby no matter where you are. You put an unloader, you get surge out, you get a bunch of swarmers or cyclones or whatever. So I've been half considering, what if I ban unloaders? Well, the gameplay impact would be extremely drastic because you know, a very large portion of the schematics that people use are core unloading, and also even like schematics with internal unloaders. And you would have to provide ammo to things directly somehow. Like, you know, your belt would actually have to connect to a surge smelter, which that's the part that would be the goal. It would end up being harder to put end-game quality defenses everywhere at the drop of a hat. You would have to actually do some logistic planning and some belt lying and some, you know, anticipation of factory construction. It would play a lot more like Erekir. And potentially countering the balance on that harder to put strong defenses, it would also be harder to mass produce units. People would have to shift away from core unloader unit factories to like in place and belt fed, which would intrinsically be slower to construct. So it might end up playing still okay. Games would slow down. There would be a lot more sort of fiddly building stuff. And there would be less RTS controlled stuff because people would naturally have smaller armies. I don't know. I'm probably not gonna go that far. That would be sort of too distant from the initial vision and gameplay and stuff. So really, I guess they gotta hope for a nerf to surge ammo going into things. It's always been weird that like the Cyclone and Swarmer, these 3x3, 2x2 defensive towers, are actually the most power dense and effective relative to like the Spectre and the Meltdown, which one would imagine would actually be the most powerful turrets, but they're not. They don't have the AoE. Well, okay, Meltdown has the AoE, but you set a bunch of your own stuff on fire and it rotates slowly. It's sort of niche, but it's so expensive. The Spectre should be a lot better than it is, but it's only got 2 pierce, so you can't even like shoot into a blob of units effectively. And power density, it's 16 cells total. It takes up 4 times as much space as a Swarmer. and does much less damage. I guess at least you put thorium ammo into it, and that's nice, but sort of the relative power balances of a lot of these things have never made sense. And then we just end up with like entire sections of content that nobody uses because it is strictly less good than something else available earlier. Yeah. Back to the game. There's a game happening under here. Mop-up phase. Yeah, so with all the players given up and suicided, and then took out the last one, and then I just have to clean up the last of these fallen cores, and that's the end of the game. 4 more minutes, 5 more minutes. Now I'll just skip to the end. So with so many copper players trying in this game, it ends up being worth 25% player tier progress. So this is the game that puts me from copper to lead. So that's nice. Now I am lead tier on both the Erekir and Serpulo servers. That's a nice accomplishment. Yeah, good game. See you next time.